I want to speak to you this morning on the topic of isolation. We are now into what our province calls stage 2. We can congregate in groups of 10. We can, of course, with social distancing. People can go to the beaches. Restaurants can open with patios. Immediate family that have been caught in the United States are now able to cross back into Canada and be reunited. Of course, Alberta now has outdoor groups of 100 and indoor groups of 50, and so we'll be waiting in Ontario to see that happen. And so it's been 13 weeks that we've all been in isolation. And what you're going to understand is that it's been, as I would call it, 3 months where we've been dealing with a plethora of ideas, emotions, thoughts, and stress. Of course, activities such as church services are become a thing of the past, although churches now apparently can have 30% of their occupancy size. But as we discussed at our ministerial this week, none of us are sure what the protocol is from the government as to how we can open our churches, so we'll keep you posted on that. But what I find fascinating is no matter what we go through, and here's another illustration of how the Bible ties in with current events. And the reality is that we are in a situation where there is, for all intents and purposes, a worldwide invasion and worldwide isolation. And so the Bible, again, it helps us in trying to deal with our own isolation. And I want to use the story of a young man, a young teenager, who in about 604 BC was taken as a hostage from his home in Jerusalem with thousands of other Hebrew captives. They traveled 2,700 kilometers from Jerusalem to the capital city of Babylon, which is in present-day Iran. And upon arrival, the Babylonian king, of course, is Nebuchadnezzar. He called the master of the eunuchs, Ashpenaz, to bring in some of the children of Israel, both of the royal family and of nobility. And the reality was he wanted to have a group around him of nobles, but of course they were Hebrew. So Daniel and 3 other young men, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, are in that group, and their purpose now is to be totally devoted and serve King Nebuchadnezzar. Of course, they had to learn a new language. They had to learn a new culture, the Chaldean culture. Did they have a choice? No. They were to eat the food of the king's choosing and be groomed and trained over a 3-year period. Did they have a choice in that? Well, we'll see, maybe for food, but nothing else. They were all renamed according to the gods of the Babylonian religion. Did they have a choice in having their name changed? No. Daniel was called Belteshazzar, which refers to the god Bel or Baal. Hananiah was called Shadrach, which means the moon god, or the city god of the city of Babylon itself. Mishael was called Meshach, who is like God. Azariah became Abednego, the servant of Nebo, the god of wisdom, and connected with the planet Mercury. So you talk about stress. Their names have changed. Everything that they've known has changed. Their very identity has changed. They have lost all personal liberty, and each one of them are all literally on their own. In fact, we have no record of their family connections, and for all intents and purposes, their own families ceased to exist once everybody arrived in this foreign country. They were isolated. They were alone. However, they had one thing in common, and this is something that could not be taken away from them. It was their faith. And we're going to see how this affected the whole reality as we now look at the life of Daniel himself, and in this book that he wrote about his life course while he was in Babylon. Does that look okay?
Yeah.
We can clip that? All right, thanks for your help.